Welcome back to another episode of the Wirex Podcast. Today, we're exploring a bold and futuristic question. Could entire nations go blockchain? To unpack this, we're joined by Aishwary Gupta, Head of Payments and Liquidity at Polygon. Welcome, Ash.
Thanks so much for having me here. I'm excited to talk more about how we can go out and use blockchains in the wider world.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe to start, could you tell us a little bit more about your professional background, how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Unlike a lot of people who actually went into crypto or came into crypto because they bought a bunch of Bitcoin and Ethereum back in 2012 and lost it. I think my entry into the blockchain world was working at American Express. So I think American Express was one of the initial investors in some of the crypto companies, and they had an innovation lab, and in that innovation lab, the idea was to kind of go out and use uh, blockchains and crypto to kind of go out and see how money can move. And there were a couple of pilots that we were actually doing, and that's where, like, I think I first met in 2018 to the technology about crypto. And from that perspective, I think that is where I started. Once like we spent quite a good time, around 2.5 years, experimenting a lot of use cases and everything like that. Then I think COVID came into the picture, and then, like, at that point of time, Amex, because its major revenue source was something around going out and having the business through travel, which was severely affected. They kind of shut down all these operations, and they said, okay, let's go back to the normal business. I think that is where I moved on to, like, instead of going back to the normal business, I moved on from there to go out and join a Indian exchange, which is called a Zeppay. I was here, worked here for on the OTC side, moving money, managing treasury, creating products, and everything like that. And after that, like, I went into a crypto bank, which is called Seba, now known as Amina Bank. I think that was my kind of second gig full time in crypto. And from there, I actually joined Polygon. And this is back in 2021 when I joined Polygon. And since then, I've been here at Polygon doing multiple roles. Started as DeFi, built out a little bit of enterprise, and then, like, now managing the entire relation around payments, liquidity, and a little bit of RWA, which is happening on Polygon.
Well, I feel like, we've been through almost a full circle, right? To a certain extent, let's unpack what the term crypto nation actually means, right? Are we talking about a country fully running on blockchain, or just adopting crypto-friendly policies? What are your thoughts on this?
I think decentralized nation, it would be like saying that this probably would be the most ambitious kind of a vision for any crypto to be, or for any nation to be actually there. The way I look at the crypto native, basically from a perspective of, like, the country, like, running on a blockchain, or having crypto friendly policies, I think I can break it down into, like, each of them. When you say running a complete country on a blockchain, how it can go out and have stable coins for payments, or maybe some form of CBDC, which is not fully controlled by the government, or let's say some on-chain governance mechanisms where you can think about having, like, government operations, voting, having all the public records like land titles, IDs, etc., maintained on the blockchain itself, tokenizing a lot of the real world assets like real estate, maybe even citizenship, or like having employment contracts or something like that in the tokenized format. And I think an interesting thing from there would also be like a decentralized identity, where people have their identities based on the blockchain, and instead of, like, them going out and proving everyone what their identity is through a physical identity, they can just use a blockchain based zero knowledge embedded identity where they don't have to even disclose who they are, and they can verify themselves. So I think that could be a good ambitious program which we can kind of go out and do. I think we have seen such programs as well. If you look at the city of Lugano, that is something where a lot of those things kind of have started to happen on the blockchain. Like, they use Polygon for a lot of transactions and payments and everything like that. We did one other thing with Mongolia where we were trying to bring in that public infrastructure on the blockchain itself. And there are multiple other, I think, initiatives where we are kind of going out and having that. I think Satoshi Island is also something where we are kind of going out and seeing that. Liberland again in Europe is something that recently got formed where Justin Sun became like I think the president or something like that. So from that perspective, I think as a crypto nation, a complete country running in through on the blockchain itself, still one of the most ambitious program. Nobody has fully executed it, but people are trying to do it. And then like if you
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think from a nation's perspective, if we look at it like a crypto nation, I think these are the main things that need to come in: the governance, the operations, the national infrastructure, payments, identity, and RWAs around that. So that is kind of like when I look at it from a perspective of, I think, crypto nations as an actual nation, this is, I think, where it might work out the best.
Yeah, and it feels really ambitious, right? And it feels like there's a lot of moving parts, and it's a long way more to go. But which countries do you think are leading the way in blockchain adoption, and what makes them stand out, you think?
I think from a perspective of countries, if I look at it, like a lot of, so with the recent election, a lot of those things have changed from a perspective of what was looked at, frowned upon, what was being stopped, what was being held. So from that perspective, I think a lot of new rules, jurisdictions, like we are recently seeing a lot of cases that have been against a lot of Web3 companies have started to kind of go out and get created, and a lot of other I think forward looking laws and everything are getting created. So from that perspective, I think from a place where we were looking at US being like one of the places where probably this time we will not see the innovation. I think that thing is back into the US land itself. And now from a perspective of, I think, going into the places where these things are very much there, I can divide it into like three or four major areas. The first and the highest use place is probably sitting with LATAM. The LATAM has one of the biggest use cases, and I mean, like, most of the payment use cases are coming out on LATAM and everything like that for us. Then from a perspective of, I think, and that the like people are worried about their current currency devaluation. People are worried about losing a value of the money or the currency that they hold, and the financial systems are also not that good. Apart from, like, I think Brazil, where PIX actually works really well. So a lot of those things are happening. So a lot of Latin countries are like really ahead from a perspective of adoption. The second place I look at it is from US side. Like now, a lot of crypto companies going big into that region. A lot of people moving there, in the form of like positive laws and in the wake of like getting more capital there. I think the third place is a little bit in Europe side with all these laws which are coming in with Mika and everyone like that. Doing business has become easier when you're talking about crypto and blockchain together, because there are laws which essentially are somehow governing a lot of those things. And then I think the fourth is APAC. APAC, though, has a lot of innovation happening, but from an adoption perspective, like, we still need a lot more maturity in the market to kind of go out and get that adoption in.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating, right? And how realistic is it for a nation to transition entirely to blockchain-based governance and finance, do you think?
I think it's a very bold vision from our perspective, because realistically, the major challenge that people would face is how like, I think if you look at it from a theoretical perspective, yeah, like all the good things, like it has a transparent governance, it has a DID, the economy is tokenized, there's no bank needed, the payment system is really good, taxation is automated. So that sounds like really good. But like from a perspective of, I think when you talk about it realistically, I think the biggest challenges are like getting the central banks or the governments to kind of go out and give control. Like the monetary policies being completely open, because still there are a lot of countries and places where the monetary fiscal policies and controls are very high. which essentially helps with inflation, interest rates, and currency and everything like that. So having a government kind of go out and allow like a complete transition into a blockchain based economy in a fully decentralized manner to lose over the control of money, taxes, and financial policy, I think that is the biggest challenge. The second one is, even from a tech perspective, irrespective of what we say today, the tech isn't ready. Like none of the blockchains, like even that exist today, can actually go out and take on like a full nation from that perspective. And to top that, like the smart contract risks and the bugs and the security that like recently the front end of Safe getting compromised and like Bybit losing $1.4 billion. I think that is something where like for a nation to be able to go out and do this, the challenge is, imagine right now only the crypto industry is suffering from that. For instance, 4 days being like Safe not being available on the front end. Imagine a nation going down just because of something like that. So I think that is kind of another problem which is there. Then even from an adoption perspective, like people in the businesses still kind of like heavily rely on cash. The knowledge about how to kind of go out and abandon your fiat in favor of on-chain transactions is still kind of a big challenge. And like, I think last but not the least, I think legal and the compliance issues with international trade. Like how do you ensure that the money that you are get sending, or like the money that is moving around here and there, is following all the financial rules of the country, is ensuring that it is not being sent to OFAC nations and everything like that. I think that would become like a major challenge as well, till like all the countries and like G20 and G4 like G7 come together and say, okay, let's go out and do everything together, and we are all like in one single place. So I think that is where we are from a perspective. Like hope, yes. Reality, right now, no.
Thanks so much for that. I mean, I wanted to unpack that a little bit more, right? Like, what would happen to banks, regulatory bodies, and central banks in a world where, blockchain is the backbone of a country? So what would that actually look like?
I mean, I can get you an utopian view, which is essentially like there will be no banks that ever exist, because like the way banks work today, they work on the capital that is kind of being custodied for the users on them. If we can kind of go out, and this is like how I look at, like, let's assume there's a new country that is getting set up. What is the first thing you need? The first thing you need is money. So if you have stable coins which essentially exist, they become a medium of exchange. Currently, the currencies which are there, if they come on chain, the that existence come on chain. Now if you have like when you talk about money, you either have to either have more money or you have less money. If you have more money, what you will do is you will kind of go into a bank and deposit it. If you have less money and you want more, you will collateralize something and go out and take a loan. For that, like, you have platforms like Morpho, uh, that is already available to kind of go out and do that. You have platforms which essentially are also slowly and steadily developing in the world, like Folks Finance is there. So from that perspective, I think a lot of those platforms are coming in from and like once you have that platform, why do I need a bank to deposit the money? And the good thing is the prices or the interest rate is determined by something which is the demand and the supply, and it's not determined by a blanket rate and everything like that. So it's highly more effective. Now, once I have that kind of a like banking system on chain, the next thing is I would want to diversify. Like having those assets, like I can use platforms like Uniswap, QuickSwap, and everything like that, and use those platforms to kind of go out and get into some other assets so that I have a diversified portfolio. So that is another use case which bank has. Like it enables you to go out and invest in multiple things with all these RWAs, ETFs, and money market funds and everything coming on chain. I can definitely go out and invest there without getting into a bank. So from my perspective, I think the utopian view is like there is no need for bank, and banks would probably have no reason to kind of exist. But like every time someone has actually gone out and said that people are really good at managing their money, the next day we have seen that people are lose money like anything. So I think that's where like the banks will have to always exist. Even all these things that are there, it is still too complex. Like tell someone today like who has never touched crypto to go out and move $200 from X country to Y country. it's a nightmare for that person. While he can then kind of go out and download an app from a app store or a Google Play Store, yeah, KYC is a problem, but after that, everything is super easy. So I think that is where like kind of we see like this is something where these things would like banks would always coexist. It's just that the banks would embed all these technologies and become more and more efficient, which they are not today. So that is how I see like possibly all these banks, regulatory bodies of the world to kind of adapt to blockchain and become like more efficient and powerful as compared to how they are today, which is inefficient and a lot slow.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting take on it, right? And I just wanted to maybe take a philosophical turn, right? If blockchain is all about decentralization, does a crypto nation contradict the core philosophy of putting too much power in the hands of the government running it?
I mean, kind of an interesting question from a perspective like a crypto nation being either like they could either embrace like the entire decentralization or completely contradicted depending upon like basically how it is like governed. Like for example, if you look at it, like there could be multiple scenarios. So maybe the first scenario could be like a government controlled crypto nation, which is like you have like a centralized blockchain governance where blockchain like the entire blockchain is basically being governed or being operated by a centralized body, but everything is still transparent because things are still like being put on a blockchain. Even though it is run by the government, maybe there are ways in which it cannot be 100% controlled by the government. So from that perspective, I think like in that scenario people would mostly be like going into like instead of having stable coins, you will have CBDCs, which kind of are like completely controlling and like forcing all the transactions being happening on that particular place. And then from a surveillance perspective, like instead of you having your privacy because of the blockchain, you're kind of like having a more surveillance because everything is tracked, everything is traced, whatever you are doing can be seen on the blockchain and everything like that. And there could be a scenario where all these blockchains, even though they are called blockchains, which are like glorified ledgers, could be like could be permission, which means that only approved entities can actually come into the picture and they can do anything like that. So I think that could be one scenario. This is where like you have China actually kind of going out and building this digital yuan from that perspective, like kind of having a full visibility on what their users do, what their users want, and everything like that. And I think the second scenario, which is kind of like a better scenario, would be like a decentralized crypto nation, which is like a true blockchain governance where you can have stable coins, which instead of like CBDCs, or they can coexist. You can have like a governance which is properly decentralized instead of like a government rule, which is kind of going out and monitoring it. You can have public blockchains fully available. So like use of Ethereum, Polygon, Solana, or any of those chains. Your identity is basically self-sovereign and your laws basically can be done through smart contracts. Since the government does not control it, they cannot modify it as they want that. And that is, I think, where all these places, like I told you, City of Lugano, Liberland, Satoshi Island, all these places where this is something they're trying to go out and do that. The only difficulty, like I said earlier, was like doesn't want to give control. Scalability and security issues still exist, and how do you enforce laws in a decentralized manner probably could be something which would be difficult. So that is something which is like the two different or 100% opposite place. If you were to kind of go out and look, like in my head, all these things are extreme. So probably we will have like something which is more of a hybrid model where you can have like CBDCs, stable coins existing together, the DAOs still the being DAOs but being regulated, payment infrastructure and everything being more privacy focused, money being more programmable and interoperable between places and everything like that. And I think like you look at the nations like Singapore, Switzerland, I think Zug and Dubai, Abu Dhabi, where they're trying to kind of go out and see a combination of both the places actually.
Yeah, I really love what you said. And do you think, we could see the rise of fully blockchain-based city-states or autonomous zones before entire nations adopt it?
In the current scenario, the smaller, like a super small one, like the examples that I like quoted earlier, like they can kind of go out and do that, like Liberland and like Satoshi Island, Lugano and everything like that, because they're smaller areas. But for a full blown country to kind of be able to go out and do that, I think it's really very difficult. So you will have zones which essentially are specific economic zones. So like for example, in India, you have a place called IFSCA where you can actually go out and do things around crypto very easily. The laws are super lenient and controlled by one single entity rather than different and multiple entities kind of going out and creating and controlling law. So those things will exist, but from a wider, a bigger country perspective, it would be difficult.
Yeah, I really love that. And, if you had to bet on one country being the first true crypto nation, which would it be and why?
I mean, from the advancements perspective, I would say like Dubai is kind of going out and like probably would become like the most likely candidate for the first crypto nation that is there, because they have like all the rules and regulations pretty much set up. Like VARA, like you have that assets regulatory authority, which kind of helps you to go out and help you to build your own laws as well sometimes. So ADGM, which is like the global markets, they kind of are like also recognizing crypto legally, where you can kind of go out and get paid in crypto and everything like that. From a talent perspective, as well, like I think all the major exchanges and all the major players are already there. And the government is like super approachable. They already have like, I don't know if people know this, but the Dubai government has been putting land records on Ethereum since last 3 years. So from that perspective, I think they already are embracing blockchain, not just by making laws, but by themselves using it. And obviously, like it's a very crypto-friendly tax nation and everything like that. So from my perspective, I think like if I have to give someone like the top place or the top contending thing, I feel that would be these guys would be the top choice.
Wow, that's really fascinating. And no, I didn't know that about the registration of land. That's really fascinating. So Ash, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close up?
No, I think from my perspective, we are further from where we were. Like back in 21, like when everyone was like like back in 2018 when everyone was like ban crypto, to 21 where some people embrace crypto, to today where a lot of people are embracing crypto. It's a cycle which essentially is growing slowly and steadily. So we are making progress, though it might not be as fast, but it is still faster than the space of internet when internet actually came into the picture.
Yeah, I always say this, that we are still building the plane while flying it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ash, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. You've given us a lot to think about. And to our listeners, what do you think? Could we see the rise of crypto nations in our lifetime? Let us know your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious and stay crypto. Thank you so much, Ash.
Thank you so much.